All right. Well, hello everybody. So I am making this video on August 20th, 2022. This will be the first video for our class Math 1325 at TCC Fall 2022 semester. Okay, so our class is calculus with applications to business and social sciences. But what I wanted to show you in this first video is not calculus. It's just something that I think would be nice to cover or review before we get into what you would call calculus. Okay. Now there's actually a lot of stuff I could review to get you ready for calculus, but think of all the math classes that you took before you got to this one. Those may have been semester-long courses taken over many semesters or many years, and it wouldn't be practical to review all that in one video. But in addition to this video, I plan to make other videos throughout the semester to review things as I think is necessary. Okay, so I don't mind reviewing things by my own volition, or if you need me to review something, you can contact me, tell me what it is, and I'm happy to make the video and post it for everybody. Anyway, so let's start with the video at hand. I wanted to review the idea of a function, okay? Because most of what we do in this class is based on doing something with a function or starting with a function, okay? So a function is some kind of a rule or a formula. It could be like many different kinds of things where given an input, the function does whatever it does and gives you exactly one output. And I wanted to write it like that there's the thing in this box is the function. And then you see the input goes in and then you get an output back out. That's kind of a dramatic way to think about what a function is. You don't have to write it that way, but for the purposes of review and to make this easy, I think that's a simple and obvious way to write it. Nobody says you have to write it that way if you don't want to. So just as I go through this particular video, think of whatever is in this box, whatever you see, okay, whether it's a rule or a formula, to be the function, okay? All right, so let's look at an example. Here's an example I think is a little bit maybe uncustomary, given all the math that you may have taken to get to this point. My function, remember the thing in this box, which given an input will convert it to exactly one output. This function, the input is a word, and the function, it gives you the fourth letter of the word, okay? So I've done some computer coding in Python, and this reminds me of a lot of code I've written in Python. Most of the things in the library are functions of one kind or another. So, okay, that is what it is. So the function gives you you input a word and the output will be the fourth letter of that word. So if the input's Tuesday, fourth letter of that word is S, so the output is S. Okay, that's what a function is. It could be anything where an input is converted over into an output. Exactly one output, all right? Just like it said in this definition up here, given any input, there is exactly one output. Not two outputs or three outputs, but one input, one output, okay? All right, now let's look at sort of a strange case that we sometimes get in functions, okay? Suppose I have this same function where the input is a word and it gives me the fourth letter of that word. And I try to input the word cat into it. Well, what's going to happen then? Well, that's a three-letter word and there is no fourth letter. So how would this function give me an output? Okay. Now, like when we start doing calculus here pretty soon, we will sometimes have something like this happen with our functions where there's no way to get an output. All right. Maybe by whatever the math is, or it could, whatever the situation is, there's no way to get an output. All right, now you can probably see that very easily here because it's not math. Sometimes the math is harder to understand. But if we have a function and from the input, from whatever we plug into that function, there is no way to get an output, we say that the function is undefined in that case, okay? So get used to seeing this undefined. You've probably come across it before. Maybe you've heard that if you take a number and you divide it by 0, that's undefined. Okay, well that's the same idea. If if you have a function and you plug a number in and then it results in dividing by 0, there's no way to get an ultimate answer to that, okay? Just like here, you input the word cat into this function, there's no way to get an output, so we say the function is undefined. All right, now, so as you would probably know, we will be dealing more with mathematical functions, okay? And so here's a function that is entirely mathematical, all right? It says e to the power 7x, take away 1, and then you divide by 4x. All right, now this number e is called Euler's number. Okay, and the way it's spelled, it looks like it should be said Euler, but it's pronounced Euler's number. Okay, and it has application in compound interest, for example. Okay, it's a number that is about 2.718. It would take some rounding for me to say that it was 2.718, but all right, that's about what it is. So this function would be like you take 7 times your input, you take the number e, which is about 2.718 to that power, then you take away 1. All right, then you divide by 4. So you'd have to do all that. Now, no normal human being is going to do that without a calculator. So I have this basic calculator right here. This is what I used to do the calculations in this example. It is very hard for me to give you standard ways of using a calculator because with so many people in the class, so there are so many kinds of different calculators among you. So as we go through the semester, you'll have your calculator, you'll use it to do what we do, and if it's just not working, if you're not getting the right answers, then you could contact me, and then I can coach you about how to use your particular calculator. But for this particular function, when I had to do the math on this, it was like I had to take e, and that calculator I have, and any scientific calculator will have a button that is devoted just for calculations with this number e, Euler's number. So I would have to do like that times, and then the power would be 7 times 1.1 because my input is that the x is going to be 1.1. Almost always in a function, x is the input, and then I'd have to take away 1, but after I did all that, I would have to divide it by 4 times 1.1. Okay, and then when I did that, okay, I got about 501.7. Okay, so the same idea, right? It's a function. This function is entirely mathematical. I put a number in for x, I get a number back out, okay, with the help of a calculator. Now, what would happen if the input were 0? What if you let x be 0? Okay, well let's try that out. So I'm going to put 0 into this. All right, so let's think of it like e to the power 7 times 0, take away 1 over 4 times 0. All right, that's what I would have to be doing in that case. So if, say I use my calculator and I was going to break this down one step at a time, the number I get on top would be 0, okay, because e to the power 0 turns out to be 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0, but then on the bottom, under the bar, 4 times 0 is also 0, okay? But what did we say a minute ago about dividing by 0? So that's undefined. You cannot divide by 0. Mathematically, there's no way to do it, all right? Maybe I'll explain why in a minute. But if you got your calculator and you type 0, divide by 0, it would tell you, I don't know what it tell you. It wouldn't give you an answer, though. It might say error. It might actually say undefined, division by 0, depending on your calculator, okay? So there, that's kind of, does that look familiar? That's kind of like when I input the word cat into this function that gives you the fourth letter of the word, okay? All right, yeah, so some mathematical operations won't actually give you an answer. And if you have a function where you end up with division by zero, that's one of them, okay? So we would have to say it was undefined in that case. All right, all right. Let's talk a little bit about, it won't take that long, and this is a video, so you could always skip ahead if you wanted to. Why is division by zero undefined? I don't want you to take that completely for granted. I mean, I know you could use a calculator, but from my point of view, if I'm the instructor, the more that I can get you to know, the better. Think of it like this. Did you know that the way division works is entirely connected to multiplication? So if I say 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5, what I mean by that is that it's equivalent to say that 20 is 4 times 5, okay? And that's the way division works. Division has to be checked by multiplication. So if I said that, well, what's 20 divided by 0? What's that equal to? Well, here's how it have to work. 20 divided by 4 is 5 because 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, that's how it works. So whatever the answer is to 20 divided by 0, whatever that answer is, you'd have to take 0 times that number, and it would have to give you 20. Well, can you think of a number that if you multiplied it by 0, you get 20? You can think about it all day. There isn't a number that's going to do that. That's why we say it's undefined. Somebody might say, well, isn't this one's a little bit different. 0 divided by 0. Why can't 0 divided by 0 be 0? Is 0 times 0 equal to 0? No, it is. Okay, so why can't we say 0 divided by 0 is 0? Well, because you could also say 0 divided by 0 was 7. What's 0 times 7? Well, still 0. Or you could say it was 8. Or you could say it was 26, you see? And since, like, in that case, there's like no unique way to check it. I can't put a number over here that's unique. Like, 20 divided by 4 can only be 5. It can't be some other number. But in the case of 0 divided by 0, well, there's like no one number I can pin the answer on, okay? So that's the story about why division by 0 is a big no-no, and we always say it's undefined. Okay, now this right here, okay, is called a piecewise function, and that will also be a type of function that we use occasionally. Now, let me see, piecewise. I think that's spelled piecewise function. So I'm a bad speller. I can admit that. I just don't memorize how to spell a lot of words, but they're piecewise function. That's what it's called. So notice here that you, like the other function, you put in an x, and you do whatever this says to do, okay? And that may require a calculator, and then you get an answer, unless it's undefined, then you don't get an answer. But how I use this function, or how I use the rule, or how I do the math depends on what the x is. You see these ifs right here? If. This is how you get the answer if the x that you plug in is less than -1. And this is how you get the answer if the x you plug in is between -1 and 4, inclusive. And this is how you get the answer, or the output, if the x you plug in is bigger than 4. So you got to consider the x is what you're plugging in. Which one of these ifs does it satisfy? Okay, let's go through the list. Is 4 less than -1? No. So it's not this one, okay? What about this last one? Is 4 more than 4? No, 4 is not more than 4. What about this middle one? Is 4 greater than or equal to -1 or less than or equal to 4? Yes, it satisfies that, okay? So that's why the output will be 8, because the formula that we would use in the case of this input for x is 2 times the x. A pretty simple formula. 2 times 4 then is 8. All right. Now, I wanted to close it off with one last thing here. For this video, for being a review video, for me wanting to emphasize that a function is just an input and an output, I've been drawing it with the box like I had, like you've seen, but there's lots of ways that we write functions, okay? So here's like 3 functions written down 3 different ways, and you know, I would just want you to see them as being equivalent, that they all mean the same thing, okay? So this right here, this is called function notation. When we write the formula, so right here, this is the formula, x squared minus 1. We write the formula and we call it f of x, okay? When we write it that way, it gives us a way to write down the input and the output together. So if I say f of 3 is 8, then what I'm saying is if you plug in 3 to this function, then you get 8 back out. It's, you know, maybe function notation seems like a weird thing, or it makes it look more complicated than it has to be, but it's pretty simple as far as its meaning. It says for that function, if you plug in 3, you'll get 8 back out. Is that true? Let's see. How does it work? I plug in 3. 3 squared, okay, so that's 9. Take away 1, so that's 8. All right, you're plugging in 3, you get 8. That's called function notation. That's probably what we use the most. Sometimes we just write x and y instead of the function notation. You know, y equals x squared minus 1. This is the same function, just written with x and y. We can say the same kind of thing about it. I can say if x is 3, then y is 8, right? Like if you let the x be 3 and you do all the math, then you get 8 for y. Sometimes we write it as an ordered pair or a point, right? In an ordered pair, that first number is the x and that second number is the y with the comma. Okay, so sometimes we do that too. It's the same information. It might be written a different way, but it doesn't really say anything different, okay? We usually use function notation because it's a lot less writing to do that right there. And then like in this video, me with the boxes. That's the way I would have written it with the boxes. Okay, how are you going to write it? That doesn't really matter to me. You know, I wrote the boxes for this video because it felt like it'd be good for reviewing and to start the semester. But you know, as long as you understand that these are all 3 ways of saying the same thing, then that's all that's important. Okay.